The Nigerian business environment in recent years has been colored with fear and uncertainty, leading to collapse of some business outfits, particularly the small-scale industries, and the relocation of big ones to other countries. It is a known fact that the country's business climate, despite its prospects, is characterized by challenges of various kinds, ranging from lack of infrastructure, such as poor electricity, poor road network, insecurity, multiple tax system, inadequate financial service, policy instability, amongst others. Well, these challenges have so far affected the flow of foreign direct investments into the country, which is a cause for worry, especially for a country in their need of an economic boost. Well, I introduced him earlier. Let's make some sense of this. He's a partner and chief economist, PricewaterhouseCoopers, Dr. Andrew Nevin. Good afternoon, Dr. Nevin. It's good to see you too.
Tolo, it's great to be here.
Yes, President Buhari said just at the concluded meeting in Dubai, he says, countries and businesses must come together to be able to scale through this time and survive this time. What do you think? Is Nigeria still that country that all investors will want to come to, despite all of the challenges identified in my introduction to this discourse?
Well, I think people want to come to Nigeria, investors want to come to Nigeria, Nigerians want to invest in Nigeria, the diaspora wants to invest. And I think there's been progress, but it is just, as you said in the introduction, just not quite enough. There's still a lot of barriers to investing in Nigeria. And it's just, you feel like we're making progress, but we're still being held back and we have to do a bit more.
I want to look at the regulatory environment now. Let's break it down a bit and see things around the ease of doing business and the regulatory environment, because this must work if we are to attract investments. What's your assessment of all of the initiatives that have been on before now?
Well, I think PwC, so the Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council, has done a fantastic job under Dr. Jaboke. I mean, she's really she's a national heroine. And I think the fact that we have PwC there shows that there is some understanding of the need for a better business environment. But I think that the challenge is that in some ways, the federal government has not taken on the core issues on there. I mean, it remains too complex and too costly to deal with the regulatory environment. There are too many MDAs. We, of course, had the report in 2013 to streamline the MDA structure at the federal government level. And that was assented to by President Buhari in 2020, actually, I think. But we haven't seen any implementation of it. So on the one hand, you have this commitment and some understanding, which is great progress over the last 4 or 5 years, the criticality of an enabling business environment, and the federal government saying enabling a business environment, but just in some cases not able to take the decision to make it simpler. So if you take the way PwC approaches it, for example, they put out this concept of a single window, so you should be able to deal with a single window to then deal with the 29 agencies that your business needs to interact with. But they're not solving the fundamental problem, which is why do you have to interact with 29 agencies? Perhaps if you only have to interact with 7 agencies, we've made progress. So, as I said, I think we've come quite a way in the last 5 years, and certainly the understanding of it at all levels of government, particularly the federal level. But just on the implementation and ease of doing business, there's still some gaps. And of course, it results in what you said, is we're not getting the foreign investment that we need across the many sectors. But I'm still optimistic. As I said, I do think we've made progress over the past few years.
All right, moving on. Infrastructure remains very important to actualize an enabling business environment, obviously. And I would agree with you, because I've seen for myself too a lot of investment in infrastructure actually by the present administration with what we're seeing and what is supposed to be done. Moving on. What do you think of Infraco and all of this dedication of funding for infrastructure? Do you see light at the end of the tunnel?
No, I think in infrastructure there's been a lot of progress. I think this administration clearly put it as priority. I think they were maybe a little bit slow at the beginning of the first President Buhari administration, but they've really accelerated recently. And you've got the major projects that are either have been done or in the process of being done. So the rail projects, Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, and then of course you have the second Niger Bridge, which is a real priority to finish before the end of the before the end of His Excellency's term. So I think that they have done that. I think they've done something else that's quite important, which is they're trying to focus on finishing the projects they started, not inaugurating new ones on that. So I do think that's a tick. And I think if we can get some of this infrastructure done that needs to be done by the government, but also, of course, the other thing is that we all recognize the private sector needs to build most of the infrastructure. So things like inland ports need to be done by the private sector, financed by the private sector. But the fact that InfraCo has come along too, I think, is a really good indication, another positive sign in the country over the last few years. Is that we really are developing a stronger and stronger architecture, financial architecture for development. So the development of Bank of Nigeria has come together. Bank of Industry is really doing very well. NSIA and of course InfraCo. NSIA is a major shareholder in InfraCo, along I think with the CBN and the Ministry of Finance and Budget and National Planning. So I'm a big fan of InfraCo. I think it's very well managed and structured, and I think it's going to make a big difference in accelerating the infrastructure.
I know you knew. I spoke to Dr. Adedikpe earlier today, on the show, and we talked about interventions from the CBN. But I want to ask you this question another way. Do you think the CBN is overwhelmed? People say they are getting involved in almost everything. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I was there in 2013 in the Bankers Committee retreat in Calabar, which was the last Bankers Committee retreat for His Excellency Mohammed Sanusi II. And he was asked this question by CNBC because, of course, he started the intervention programs, starting with agriculture. And he said, if not, who? If not us, that is the CBN, who? If not now, when? And he was just making the point that no other economic actor in the country was taking on some of these intervention programs. I think as the years have developed, of course, President Governor Mafele has picked up on this and continued to expand into different intervention programs, and continuing agriculture, of course, but also cultural industries, for example, and SMEs. I do think that we should be considering, though, having the CBN scale back some of these intervention programs. As I said, we're starting to see stronger and stronger other strong actors in the development finance field, and I think the CBN could, over the next few years, start to cede some of these things back to those actors and not itself play that. Because, of course, compared to traditional central bank, these are extremely not unorthodox. They may be unique roles that our central bank is playing. So I'm not going to be critical of what they've done in the past, but I think it's time to think about the overall architecture that we want for these kind of development interventions, and whether we want them to also be housed at the CBN. I think it's more sensible to house them at the BOI or the DBN or InfraCo or NSIA than necessarily at the CBN. But I think that's going to happen naturally. As I said, the CBN went into this under His Excellency because there was a need to do it. No one else was doing it. But with other actors emerging, that need is going to go away. And I think you'll find over the next few years the CBN probably does less and less of it and can focus more on its core mandate of financial management, monetary policy, interest rates, reserve ratios, all of those issues.
No, but before I go to my second, my next question, actually, I want to stay a little bit with the central bank. We also know the launch of the Inara, which many have also said positive things about it. Financial inclusion, enhanced banking efficiency. We can go on and on about the positives. Now, I don't know, Dr. Nevin, are you thinking along that line? What do you make of the Inara Initiative in boosting the economy?
No, PwC, we're huge fans of what the CBN has done. I mean, just so everyone understands, the difference between the Inara and the point of sale system is it just is a way to transfer value for low value transactions, particularly to the bottom of the pyramid, costlessly. So an Inara transaction, Inara wallet to Inara wallet is costless. The central bank has got on its roadmap in the very short term bring the Inara out so it works on USSD, so you don't have to have a smartphone to access it. And then you're going to build all sorts of use cases on it. So an obvious use case is the federal government has come out and said, as we remove the foil subsidy, we're going to send 5,000 Naira a month to 40 million Nigerians at the bottom of the pyramid. It's a question, how do you do that without having diversion and it works quickly, et cetera? With the Inara, I mean, you can send it instantly. I mean, you just literally in 10 minutes, you can send that 5,000 Naira to 40 million Nigerians. And it's that kind of use case that's fantastic. So we're big fans. I know that, and of course, I also applaud the fact that there's so many central banks around the world studying this, and in some cases doing small-scale trials. And we might criticize the central bank for going prematurely, but I'm not in that camp. I mean, they kind of said the decision, we're doing this, we're going to be in the forefront of it. We recognize their issues. So of course, in the launch, it got delayed a few weeks as some of those initial issues got ironed out, and we continue to iron out those issues. As I said, the USSD has to come onto the system in the next few months on that. So, but overall, it's a fantastic innovation. Real credit to the CBN in doing that. And I think that once the system is stable, it'll be very easy to drive adoption of it. They can use certain incentives. Of course, as you pay your taxes using the Inira is the simplest way, perhaps a bonus for that. They start to pay some of their own employees with the Inira. Then very quickly you're going to find the Inira becomes a normalized mode of payment. And once you experience the Inira, this instant transfer value, no failures, no cost, I mean, it's just very attractive. So I think it's fantastic innovation. As I said, all credit to the CBN for having the courage to do this. And then if you take the BVN and the Inira, and of course the SEC is thinking about asset tokenization, so that then you'd be able to trade, say, from an Inira into a bond fund, very simply and essentially no cost. We could see ourselves in a situation 4 or 5 years we have perhaps the most advanced financial system on the planet. That's where I think we can get to with this kind of technology leapfrog.
Now, wrapping up this segment of the discourse, now, when we talk investments, which is what we actually started, we're talking about our business environment. Of course, all of this comes in line as we continue to talk about this. The oil and gas industry is also very strategic. And even as we try to look at the non-oil space, we still have to take advantage of our oil reserves. Now, the likes of the PIA was implemented so that we could do better. What do you think, and what are your expectations with regards to the oil and gas space?
Well, I think it's a very interesting issue. I mean, the world is moving so rapidly away from investing in oil. And we could have an argument, and of course, people from oil-producing countries have stood up, including His Excellency the President, and said, we're going to have oil for a long time, we need investment in it. But the people that control most of the investable assets on the planet are rapidly rotating away from oil. So we may find, for oil at least, the PIA is a little bit late. And of course, to the extent that there is still some investment in oil, is Nigeria going to be at the top of the list for all of the reasons that we said? I mean, the oil that's easily accessible, also always great, the onshore oil, which is very low lifting costs, at least on the surface low lifting costs, but because of the community issues it engenders, because of the pollution issues, it causes many difficulties on that. So even the limited amount of oil investment the world makes may not come to Nigeria, probably won't come to Nigeria. And I think we need to recognize that. And the PIA may have been, if we wanted oil investment, may be 10 or 15 years too late. And of course, there's not enough capital in this country for Nigerians to actually invest in the oil industry in a significant way. So that may be an issue. On gas, I think the jury is still out. We debate a lot about gas and whether it's a transitional fuel. And I think a lot of the asset managers around the world are still debating whether they're prepared to finance gas projects on that. I mean, obviously, I think the federal government has, in its strategy, has done the right thing and said we're really a gas nation, not an oil nation. But now we need to kind of get the investment to back it up. So obviously, the PIA was a big step in that direction. But again, even though some people view gas as a transitional fuel, other asset managers saying they're not just that they're not investing in oil, they're also not investing in gas. So we may find ourselves challenged again to attract the gas investment. So we may put ourselves in a position by waiting so long to do the PIA that we, in a sense, missed the boat on that, and we don't get much investment. I hope we get some gas investment. I do think there's an equity issue around this as we rotate off of carbon-based fuels, and President Buhari, I think, put it very well in his speech recently at COP26. I mean, it's punishing a country like Nigeria that didn't cause the climate crisis. We need investment, particularly in the gas area, to develop gas to power for Nigerian power on that. But whether we get the investments, I said, it's just, if you're out there in New York or London, the people that control the assets are rapidly rotating away from wanting to invest in hydrocarbons.
Let's do this. If we can do just in 1 minute, let's look ahead. What are your projections? Africa wants to trade with Africa, and everybody's trying to come together. Looking at the challenges of Omicron, of course, what are your projections for 2022? Just an overview.
Well, I'm very optimistic. I've been standing up and saying I'm optimistic. We all know the challenges, and we all live with the challenges here. But despite that, I see things happening all over Nigeria, all over Africa that are extremely positive. And I was particularly encouraged by, again, the young Nigerians, the level of innovation, what they're doing with technology. I'm encouraged by how people are inserting themselves in global value chains, earning FX for Nigeria while staying in Nigeria. And I'm very encouraged by what states are doing. I mean, that's been such a major change in the last 5 or 6 years, where states are stepping up and taking their own destiny into their hands. So states like Edo, Nasarawa, Kaduna, Ekiti, Ogun, just to name it. Ondo is doing more and more, to name a few. So, I mean, that's really encouraging. And so despite all the challenges we know, we're making progress. So I'm pretty optimistic in 2022. And I will say, on the record, we believe that the official GDP numbers do not nearly capture the size of the economy. There's a lot more going on in Nigeria than the NBS, God bless them, but they're not capturing all of the economic activity in this country. So I'm really encouraged, and I think we're going to start to see, I hope the official numbers catch up that show that our official growth rate is actually higher than population growth rate, which is what we all want to see.
Amos, thank you so much for your time there. Partner Chief Economist, PricewaterhouseCoopers, Nigeria. That's Dr. Andrew Nevin. Thank you so much for spending your busy Monday, a part of it, with us. We really appreciate this.
Thank you so much, Tom.